For more, I can now talk to Deepmala Mahla. She's the Chief Humanitarian Officer at the humanitarian agency CARE. So good to have you on the show. Your organization is in Sudan delivering humanitarian aid to civilians affected and displaced by the conflict. Can you describe what everyday life looks like there?
Everyday life in Sudan. So a country of 45 million people, more than half of which urgently need humanitarian assistance. More than 18 million people are acutely hungry. This also includes 3.6 million children who are acutely malnourished. And every passing day, with this ongoing conflict, with obstructed aid, and with unfunded humanitarian response, the situation only gets worse, and a lot of them are getting closer to death. Basic services, even like health, are pretty much non existent. The system is on its knees. And let me say one thing, this conflict has created a war on women. From gender based violence to sexual violence, displacement, eating least, not having health services, it is a war on women. Now, the daily life. Before this crisis, before this 1 year, people had hopes, dreams, aspirations, but now what we hear is about stories of despair, frustration, a feeling of abandonment. We are hearing very extreme measures like people having to resort to eating soil and even leaves. And let us mince no words. This humanitarian crisis is not because of a shortage or a climate induced disaster or some bad harvest. All these factors have contributed, certainly, but the only reason is ongoing conflict between the parties and obstruction of humanitarian aid.
Yeah. Deepmala, you call it a war on women. There are reports, we heard it there, of the widespread use of sexual violence against internally displaced persons. Your organization, CARE, focuses on gender imbalances in conflict situations. What can be done, in your opinion, to better protect the most vulnerable from these kinds of crimes?
Absolutely. Women and girls have faced, have been facing, and continue to face the brunt of this conflict, which includes sexual violence as a weapon of war. The first thing, civilians need to be protected, and sexual violence as a weapon of war must be stopped. The commitments made under the international humanitarian law and the recently voted UN Security Council resolution must be respected by all parties to the conflict. Each of us, each single one of us, can play a role here. Of course, the parties to the conflict have it in their power to cease the hostility and let aid in. The international community can play a role in, first, by not looking away, funding this humanitarian response, supporting women-led organizations. That's what CARE does, because let's not think about women as victims. They are the first responders in a crisis. It is not about their needs. Never was, never should be. It is about their rights. They are the first responders. They are on the ground. They know the problem. They understand the context, and they have the solution. So let us come together to strengthen them and prevent this humanitarian crisis to becoming a famine situation, which probably the world has not seen in decades. As per projections, I will not be surprised if things do not change. It could even be worse than the 2011 famine, which we saw in Somalia.
That is a wake-up call from Deepmala Mahla, Chief Humanitarian Officer at CARE. Thank you so much for your time.